sick with the slang, sick and I'm destined for fame. Do for the fam, not for the gram. Stunting, you're destined for pain. I do not front, I do not scam. Put some respect on my name. Sick like Cobain, click and I bang. Y'all gon' remember the name. Y'all gon' remember the name.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the podcast. This is Real Talk with Zuby, with your host, of course, Zuby. Today, we've got on another special guest, as we do every episode. This is Bryan Sharpe, aka Hotep Jesus, and he is a software marketer, and he's also a really dope personality to follow on Twitter. I've been following him for a while, so we're gonna have a real talk conversation. How you doing, bro?
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Wonderful introduction, man. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome, man. So I hear you're out in Vegas right now as we record this.
Yes, we are live from Vegas. I'm at the Rio. We have the top floor. I'm with Gary, the numbers guy. He's got the top floor. Big, huge suite with the outdoor pool overlooking the whole city. Yeah, crazy big baller suite. It's crazy. Yeah, hell yeah. So I just came out here for the weekend to hang out.
That's dope, man. I haven't been to Vegas, but it's one of those places that I feel like I have to go to at some point in my life just to say that I've been there and to experience it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a real big Vegas guy. It's not. I think there's much better places to go.
That's fair enough, man. It's one of those places. Like I have a feeling I don't think my personality and my interests are so much aligned with it. Like I'm not even a gambler or whatever. But it's one of the, when you see places like, it's such an iconic place, you see it in so many movies and all that. And it's like, I kind of have to go there at some point just to say, yeah, I've walked down that strip.
It's an experience. I'll tell you that. It's definitely an experience.
Yeah.
You're not going to see this anywhere else.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I just wanted to have a conversation with you. I think I first came across you online. I think, on that viral video, I don't know if it was last year or the year before when you got the free, you had a viral video when you got some free coffee from Starbucks. And I think that was
2018.
Okay. And I think that was when I first started following you on Twitter. And then I was like, this guy's got some interesting views and points and stuff like that, which a lot of other people are not saying. And so, yeah, I started following you then, and yeah, it's just been interesting to see what you're doing. So why don't you introduce yourself to the people? Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Let's see, where should I start? In a nutshell, what you should probably do is just kind of look at my connections with 50 Cent. That's pretty much where I got my real big breakthrough into the entertainment industry, into the marketing industry. I was running the marketing department for one of his startups.
Okay, which one was that?
This was Pure Growth Partners was the name of the incubator. And the incubator, basically what they did was they would pool money from investors, and then they'd attach brands to celebrities and launch these, startup / brands or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we had a lot of people in the office. We had meetings with Kanye, Bieber. At the time, Bieber's manager was the same manager as what's his name? The other white boy rapper. Oh man, he hasn't been on. I want to say Aston something.
Asher Roth. So you're talking about Scooter Brown, is it?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to work with Mano, Papoose.
Okay.
I got to meet a whole lot of people. G Unit, the G Unit Biker Squad. So and then after that, I launched a brand for Carmelo Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
which was a sports drink. And then ever since then, but really what happened was, I saw that I was in CPG, consumer packaged goods,
Okay.
and I saw the barriers that come with having a packaged good as opposed to a digital good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I want to switch to digital. So I switched to digital, and I've just been doing software marketing ever since. I've dealt with over, probably 30 different apps marketing.
Okay, man. So how did you first get into that? How did you get involved?
Into the app marketing?
So you said you were working with all these brands and all these artists. I mean, how did you do that to begin with?
So basically what happened was I was a touring artist. Me and Demic were a touring artist. We were a group, Demic in Boston.
Okay.
And BAWSTEN. And we were just like, gaining a lot of traction offline and online.
Mm-hmm.
So we're, in our area we were promoting, we were like pretty much like a local act, I guess you can say. So we were using the content from that and putting it on social media, and it just looked really good, So we got a bunch of tours out of it. like Miami, LA, the major cities around United States, and then like some smaller markets, college tours, stuff like that. And I
Okay.
had a blog, I had an entertainment blog at the time, and I had about 7 writers writing on my blog. And we were doing 1 million returning visitors a month,
Okay.
and it was getting a lot of traction. So through that, I was getting a lot of media invites, and through the media invites, I was just kind of like networking, and that's how I got invited to the 50 Cent launch, and that's kind of like how I moved into the marketing role over there.
Okay. I get you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what are the projects that you're working on at the moment then?
Right now, we're working on a DApp, a decentralized application. Right now, we're working with Bitcoin, where people can actually transact and purchase Bitcoin on a weekly basis using their spare change, sort of like the Acorns model, but
Hmm.
just for Bitcoin. Um, and then we're launching a new feature soon. The name of that app is CoinBitsApp.com. It's only in the U.S. right now.
Okay.
We're looking to go global soon, but we kind of want to just get some kinks worked out first. But yeah, we're hitting the U.S. market heavy with CoinBitsApp.com. And we have a really cool feature coming down the pike, which will allow creators to receive USD. Actually, people to donate USD, and the creators that will receive Bitcoin, and then we'll wallet Bitcoin for people. So that's a real exciting project for me, being in the Bitcoin, being in fintech at the same time,
Yeah.
still being in startups, which I love, and applications. I have another app which is called Gifitize, and Gifitize allows you to basically rip GIFs from Twitter and videos. So if you see a video on your timeline, or a GIF, and you
Mm.
want to save it to your iPhone, you hold down the button, hit the Gifitize button, boom, go straight to your phone.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
So,
so
when did you start Coinbits?
September we launched of 2018.
And
So that's up and running. We've got, transacting, making investments in Bitcoin through that.
awesome, man. So,
Hmm.
Bitcoin is an interesting topic in itself. How long have you been involved or invested? And then number two, where do you think it's going? Because obviously that's a
Hmm.
topic where, I mean, 2018 was a rough year, needless to say. But
Yeah.
where
I
do
mean,
you see it going long term?
I think I was late on the Bitcoin thing. I was very skeptical in the very beginning. I thought,
Hmm.
the regulations were going to kill it faster than it did, or could. Um, but I got in 2017. So when everybody made money in 2017, I made money in 2017
Hmm.
off the Bitcoin, rally or whatever. And I've just been interested in ever since, just for the fact that it provides people freedoms. You see like a lot of people getting deplatformed through Patreon. They're
Hmm.
not letting them take payments through Stripe and PayPal. So
Hmm.
it's like with decentralized apps, you can get around all that stuff.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really interesting with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general is, I mean, I'm super interested in it, and it's a field I'm very excited about the potential for. A lot of times people ask like, what's the point of Bitcoin? What purpose does it solve? What problem does it solve? I mean, you just mentioned right there, about people being demonetized or people being deplatformed and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
in terms of the
Yeah.
general population, I think that the average person seems a bit unconcerned about that. Like, I think Bitcoin and crypto at the moment, it seems to appeal a lot to people who are a little bit skeptical of government, quite libertarian minded. It appeals to people who tend to be within a certain political sphere almost. Like, I feel
Hmm.
like Bitcoin, the idea of having a decentralized currency that's not controlled by any government, that's distributed, that is trustless, like the whole concept of that appeals to me massively, kind of just
Right.
because of my views on certain things, and the idea that, what, money shouldn't just be something that's controlled at a whim by a small handful of bankers in what other country, and just they're free to do whatever with it they want, including inflating it to death, printing tons of money or whatever like that. But it seems
Hmm.
like a lot of people are very happy with the current system, and they think the whole thing is kind of pointless. And I think it's normal to have that skepticism to begin with. But I guess from your perspective, what made you go from being skeptical to being like, you know what, this is something that does have value and is worth investing in and looking at in more detail?
I think that's where the world is going to go. I think the world is going to end up being a cryptocurrency. They, I mean, you've heard rumors about them getting rid of a physical currency for a long time and moving to a digital currency.
Sure.
So, it's like if we know we're moving there, first of all, we have to understand that Bitcoin is a store of value. It's
Hmm.
just where you store value, kind of like gold. Um, so, if you know the world is going that way and you become an early adopter and you own this cryptocurrency, by the time the entire world goes cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
you'll have more wealth accumulated than everybody else in the new currency. So I'm like, I want to be an early adopter.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I'm completely on board with that. I'm a little bit of a believer and somewhat of an evangelist when it comes to cryptocurrency, which has become harder in the past year because people look at it in the past year and everyone's just looking at it from a short-term financial perspective, and they're like, "Oh man, like no, that's that's way too volatile. That's way too crazy." And I can completely understand that perspective. But in terms of the fundamentals, in terms of the fundamental appeal, I'm kind of like, you know what, nothing has changed. So yeah, no, it's a really interesting topic. Bitcoin and crypto in general is one of those things I can talk about. I can talk
Yeah.
about people with for forever, but it's always interesting just to know what people's different perspectives on it are. So one thing I did want to talk to you about, I guess, is well, first of all, your nickname of Hotep Jesus,
Yeah.
which is an interesting nickname. Where did that come from? What's the origin?
I was just in the early stages of building Hotep Nation.
Hmm.
We, people were, they called us Hoteps or whatever. So we kind of took on that name Hotep. My voice was, at the time, was very much more spiritual and mystical.
Hmm.
So somebody said, "What do you think? You're some type of Hotep Jesus?" And I was like,
Ah,
kind of, it made it made me laugh. So I just took the name on.
okay. You're definitely going to need to explain to the audience what Hotep even means.
Yeah, well, Hotep is ancient Metaneta or ancient Egyptian for peace. Some people would translate it as peace. My brother Shaka Hakmos would call it satisfaction.
Hmm.
It also means to be to rest. So, but there's actually, like, I want to say, almost 20 definitions of the term Hotep.
What do Hoteps stand for?
To make it simple for people to understand, I guess you can say like the conscious community is the right wing of the black community.
Hmm.
So, Hoteps would be like the right wing of the black community. Probably point the forefather to somebody like Marcus Garvey,
Okay.
who believes more in just kind of like practicing nepotism as opposed to activism.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so that's where we're at. We're just all about building. First of all, I think economic intelligence
Hmm.
and financial intelligence and educating our people. So that's kind of our mission, is to educate people on how economics works and how they should handle it, manage their finances, investing, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess you can say we're definitely capitalists,
Okay,
Hotep Nation at least.
gotcha. Where does the majority of the pushback come from? And two, why do you think that is?
We're not keen on the activism, the marching, the protesting. We don't support that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, what else? We're not in the business of crying about police brutality. We're more or less about, let's actually elect the officials we want and install our own police, and then we won't have those issues. So we're about building the economic base. But
Hmm.
basically, what it comes down to is we're solutionary, as Maj Tory would say. But the thing is, when you start dealing with the work, you start dealing with the solutions. That stuff's not easy. It's real easy to just complain about your issue, about your problems,
Sure.
but it's a whole nother thing to say, hey, look, this is within my power. This is within my control. And you see it at the individual level too. It doesn't escape individuals. Individuals all the time their success will be crippled because they take on the idea of blaming everybody else for their problems instead of taking accountability and responsibility for their own problems.
Sure.
So that's the attitude we have. And anytime you go to somebody and they're complaining to you about their problems and you pitch self accountability, they're going to get mad at you. They're not
Hmm.
going to like that advice. They just want you to sit there and listen to them rant and cry. That's really what people want, just a shoulder to lean on. And we're not trying to be that shoulder to lean on.
No, that's the vibe I get. The UK and the USA are very similar in a lot of ways, but I think they're also very different in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
from down to the history to the way society kind of conducts itself and also the way that society stratifies itself. So, based on my experience and my observation and some time spent in both countries, I feel like the US is a lot more racially stratified even to this day.
Okay.
I think the divisions are more racial, whereas in the UK, it's more stratified by class.
Hmm.
So in the UK, racial relations overall, I'd say, are certainly a lot better and smoother than they are in the US, which might not be surprising given the history. But it's interesting for me, especially as someone who spends a lot of time online, has lots of followers who are based in the US, who follows a lot of people who are in the US as well. It's always interesting for me to keep an eye on what's going on over there. It's a little bit bizarre to me in a lot of ways because I look at things and I'm like, okay, oftentimes people will be like, oh, but you're not a Black American, you're not living that experience, so you can't really comment on it or whatever. But I kind of feel like maybe because I'm an outsider in some ways, I think it gives me like a bit of a clearer view on certain things. Like you were alluding to earlier, there's obviously a lot of the activism. You've got a lot of people pushing certain narratives, pushing certain ideas, which to me looks like it's disempowering. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
what you just said that you're trying to do as an individual or as a movement, to me, I hear that and I'm like, awesome. Self responsibility, accountability, stuff you can control within your own sphere and take action on. To me, I'm like, that's almost the definition of empowerment. That's not saying
Right.
that someone else is stopping me, someone else is holding me down, the system is against me. It's saying, like, okay, this is where we are, this is where we want to go, this is where I am, this is where I want to go. What can I do to get from A to B or A to Z? And you're just acting on that. You're not pointing fingers elsewhere. You're just saying, like, okay, like, let's do this. And the way my worldview is, I'm like, yeah, that's the way forward. But it
Uh-huh.
seems like a huge number of people disagree with me. Based on what I see of your interactions, it seems like, you've got like a wave of people who are against you and your entire philosophy, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
do you make of that?
They're just having their strings pulled. They're being manipulated and controlled. They're not actually in control of themselves. They allow the media to dictate their actions by provoking and cajoling their emotions.
Mm,
You know, um, and that's pretty much it. These people allow large accounts to kind of dictate the direction that we're going. you
yeah.
know, it doesn't matter strategy and all that stuff if you're headed in the wrong direction.
Mm,
But all of our black leaders are headed in the wrong direction. So, for people that aren't capable of thinking for themselves, they have to take direction from someone. And usually the numbers are going to be out. So when the numbers, are the people on TV and they have millions of followers,
mhm.
social proof usually wins out. So, it's pretty much like mainstream versus the underground. But, we just keep the fight going, I guess.
And how do you think that's changed over time? Obviously, 2016 dropped a big bomb on the USA. I think it's kind of like it seems like it tore apart the fabric of a lot of people's realities with Trump getting elected, and it
Hmm.
seems like those pieces still have not been. It's like people haven't recovered yet. People are still trying to put that back together again. As an outsider, that was very intriguing for me to watch. Like to watch people quite literally, physically, mentally break down. Something just happened overnight, which kind of proved that your entire worldview had like a gigantic blind spot. And I still feel
Hmm.
like people don't seem like they've gotten to grips with that. So as someone who's out there on the ground in the country, do you feel like it's I don't know, do you feel like things are getting better, things are getting worse? Are you optimistic, pessimistic, just kind of zen?
Uh, I don't know. Like, that's like really like a complicated question, right? Because all of that stuff is subjective because everybody has different goals. And I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
When we look at politics, right? When you look at politics within conservatism, everybody has separate goals. Within libertarianism and liberalism, everybody has their own goals.
Mm,
And then individually, we have our own goals. As a family, as a community, as ethnicity, as a race, we all have our own goals. And I think that humanity as a whole isn't on one accord, and I mean that harmoniously from a very conscious or spiritual level. People aren't empowered intellectually, so when you have a society of idiots, it's just basically, I don't know, I guess slavery, I guess. Because these people are just gonna follow whatever the master says. And the master is whoever has the intelligence that controls the media and whoever controls the education. Even at the educational level, children are brainwashed, children are conditioned. The educational system's broken. Just the way in which we teach children.
Hmm.
You take children and you lock them in a box for 9 hours out of the day and take them away from their parents, their mother. There's just something wrong there. The fact that enough classes aren't being taught outside, the architecture is ugly, the rules are messed up, the idea of the teacher being the authority over their student. I get it, but it's very flawed in where the teacher becomes infallible.
Mm.
And that becomes an issue where the children aren't allowed to challenge their teachers. You see that a lot, especially in history, where, or in politics, where you're not allowed to challenge your teacher. You see it in college, where you're not allowed to challenge your teacher
Hmm.
because your teacher's a liberal. you know
Yeah, yeah.
I think if we don't take a strong look at how children are being educated, is love being taught? Do we teach love, right?
Mm.
um and I think that's like the first art, and how to live life out of love. And most people are missing that. You see that in politics a lot, because it's just a constant war. It's just constant, this side attacking that side, this side attacking that side. And if you like something somebody from the other side says, then your side is mad at you. Like I said before, it's like, so what's the goal, right? Is the goal here to bring harmony, or is the goal here to be right?
Yeah.
And so it's quite an issue. But I believe that children are the future.
Well,
So
there's no question. I mean, they are by definition.
yeah. So that's why
So,
we have to take a strong look at our educational institutions,
mm,
and that'll tell you where our future's going.
yeah, man. So, what do you, in terms
Yeah,
of the school system, say, what
yeah,
sort of changes do you think they could make that would make a significant difference in terms of just making that next generation wiser,
yeah,
smarter,
yeah.
and more united, I guess?
Yeah, so what happens is, and I believe they do this in some other countries, but you'll see a certain student has a proclivity towards a particular subject, or towards a particular art. When you see a child, in class, and he's beating on a desk, you say, "Oh, he wants to play percussion." So you got to
Hmm.
put him in a drum class. That's a musical child. When you have a child that's dancing, you say, "Oh, this child wants to be in the arts. He wants to dance. So, let's move them to dance."
Yeah.
You have to recognize these. If this child is good at math, let's, push him in the STEM direction. If this child is good in English, let's push them in that direction,
Hmm.
and treat it more like college in that aspect, where all your classes are focused around your expertise, you
Okay.
know. So I think that's one thing. The way we deal with troubled children is incorrect. When we talk about what they call a bad child, which isn't a bad child, it's a misled child.
Hmm.
It's a lonely child. It's a child that hasn't been loved. But when we take an unloved child and put them in detention, what do they call the jail? They call the jail a detention. So we're really
Mm.
teaching children how to go to jail, and we're actually conditioning them to think it's not that bad, because after you do 3 4 detentions, you're like, oh, I can do this as a piece of cake. So when you
Yeah.
get older, oh, I can sit down, this is a piece of cake. But that's not how we deal with individuals, and how we deal with troubled children. A lot of times, a teacher, let's say a teacher needs a class helper, pass out the pencils and stuff like that. Let the troubled child do it. Like, they
Mm.
usually punish the troubled child and take those privileges away, when usually the troubled child is usually the CEO of a future company. These
Mm.
are outgoing types. These are your entrepreneurs. These kids need to be pushed forward in front of the class. They need to be pushed. They don't have any fear. A lot of times you have a more introverted child, and the teacher's forcing the introverted child to be more extroverted. And I'm not saying they shouldn't exercise public speaking or anything like that, but I'm
Mhm.
just saying, why are we going to force an introverted child to face his fears like that, passing out the papers, and you got somebody that's willing and able, that's disrupting the class because you won't allow him to.
Yeah.
But those are just two quick examples. We can talk about teacher salaries and the fact that teachers suck, because nobody wants to be a teacher. So our best minds aren't teachers.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot wrong.
So you think in terms of that aspect of it, I'm guessing here, potentially privatizing more and creating more of a financial incentive and a little bit more of a free market in terms of the schools. Is that what you think?
Free market might help. I'm sure
Yeah.
free market will help. I'm a big fan of free market and letting people do what they want with their education. I think yeah, absolutely, yeah. That
Yeah.
I think that's a great start. Mark Zuckerberg donated like I want to say 100 million or something crazy like that to Newark schools or something. It was an astronomical number
Hmm.
to Newark schools, and Newark schools are pretty bad. And when we turn around and look back on what changed in those schools to now, as far as children performing better, you have nothing to show for it. You got a whole bunch of fancy new computers and stuff like that, and upgraded offices and desks, but the performance of the students hasn't changed much. And that's because there's a problem with the parents, and that's a even bigger issue. How do we get the parents and the teachers to work together? How do you get a parent to work more with their child? A lot of the time, a parent doesn't help their child do homework because the parent can't do the homework them damn selves. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So you got it, broken down from there. So then it's just like, how do you allow this parent to deal with the trials and tribulations of life,
Hmm.
and have time for their child? Because a lot of them don't. A lot of them are just coping. Some of them are coping with alcohol. Some of them are drugs.
Mm.
Some of them are coping with TV, social media. Everybody's trying to cope somehow. So they're not even. The parents are not even motivated to help the children. That just comes back to like the whole welfare system, destroying motivation and you know what I mean, and incentivizing ideation and creation.
Yeah.
So yeah, the system's messed up way up top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, man. I think like I don't consider myself weirdly enough, like I feel like I talk about politics a lot, although I don't consider myself a deeply political person, especially in terms of like the nitty-gritty party politics. I tend to care more about it on like a high level in
Hmm.
terms of like what are the right general ideas, and also in terms of how it affects society and culture, and also how
Hmm.
society and culture affects politics, say. I think one of the biggest wedges to me kind of comes down to the whole idea of what we touched on earlier, the idea of personal responsibility. Like,
Right.
I think when you kind of boil it down, so many of the things fall down to that. Because even if both sides of the argument, say, identify the same problem, you'll
Hmm.
typically want to have one which is, so you just touched on welfare, right? So if you're talking something like welfare, you've got one group of people saying there's too much of it. People are being disincentivized from working and from creating and from being productive because they've got too much to be able to fall back on. We need to cut this back. And then on the other hand, you've got people saying the complete opposite, like, no, we need to raise this. You've got people talking about concepts like universal basic income, so just giving everybody like X amount of money every month or every year, like just for breathing and existing. And you've got all these arguments
Hmm.
pro and against. Something I'm very big on is just, general unity and harmony. I genuinely do
Yeah.
believe, people can get on, people can have different ideas and sometimes opposing ideas, but that doesn't mean we need to scream and shout at each other or beat each other up in the street or whatever, like God forbid.
Right. Right.
Um, and when I see stuff looking like it's descending into that, even if it's
Hmm.
not in my own country, right? I can look at some stuff in the States and I'm like, that concerns me.
What are people's goals? Is the goal to like provide harmony for each other? Is the goal to be right?
Mm.
And everybody wants to be right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's one thing being right, but it's one thing to think you're right and then be
Yeah.
proven wrong, and then to go, okay, you know what, I was wrong here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like people aren't even willing to do that. It's like this isn't an opinion. This is just like facts.
Right.
And yeah, that's something I find. I don't know. It's weird to me. Maybe I think about it a little too much. So in terms of the future, in terms of what you're working on in the future or projects you've got coming up in 2019, what's on the table?
The Bitcoin thing.
Okay, yeah,
Coinbitsapp.com, coinbitsapp.com, pushing that heavy this year. That's gonna be my baby project. Other
okay,
than that, publishing work. I have my book out, Twitter marketing, how to build a cult like following. Published that last year, April. And I have a few more works coming out this year, maybe like 3 or 4. So just putting good material out into the world to like educate people and empower people to be able to do something for themselves. So like my next book is more social. It's about like like dealing with people.
Okay.
So when people read that, hopefully the people that read that are able to have better relationships in their life, and I think that that'll be helpful as well, because we have a lot of people that break up, become divorced, over like a lot of babies being born to bad relationships.
Sure.
So trying to like mitigate some of those risks there with the work I got coming out soon, and I do all that stuff through BryanSharpe.co.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Here's a question. Have you always been someone who thinks differently outside of the herd? Is that something that's always been in you, or was there kind of a moment in your life where, I don't know, something struck you and you kind of had a moment where you were like, you know what, like the Matrix is not what it seems?
Yeah, I've always been completely different from the other kids. My interests were always different. The types of video games I played were different.
Mhm.
But I've always been like into computers. So I was like always a computer geek. But I always been entrepreneurial. Like I had my own printing business when I was 16. I was back in '96.
Okay.
Um, I was burning CDs. We had a CD burner, so I'd burn CDs for people, or I sell like mixes. I always had like entrepreneurial spirit. I had my website up, in like '96 when the internet really started getting popular. I had my own website.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always been, like even when my friends wanted to rap, I wanted to be the record label owner. I'm like, I don't want
Okay.
to
Yeah.
rap. I want to be the record label owner.
Yeah.
So I was like, how about I start the label and y'all sign to me?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So
That's cool, man.
yeah,
Do you still do anything within the world of music then?
yeah. The artist that I was managing when I was younger, and we still work together a lot. He became like a friend. He just got signed to a record label. That's C Francis, SEE Francis,
Mm.
signed to a record label. I still work with my homie Demic. He's actually out here in Vegas too. He just put out a video. But
Okay.
for a while, I was consulting celebrities on like how they should like maneuver their brand, and that was kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't know. I guess you can say a behind the scenes guy for a few celebrities in New York City area that kind of came to me for direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So one thing I am curious about, it's a little bit of time has passed since, but what did you make of the whole Kanye West situation in 2018? Did you have any strong perspective on that?
I know Kanye, man. Like, and I don't mean like I know him personally. I mean, I just from following him in the music and watching him and growing up on his stuff. I knew Kanye. I always identify with Kanye. Like, like when you go say like, was I different? When I remember arguing with somebody, they're like, who's better, Jim Jones or Kanye West? I was like, Kanye West. It's not even like a competition.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
this was when Jim Jones had that real big hit, Ballin',
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and Dipset was on top a little bit,
yeah,
you know. So, I always like, thought differently, but and I always saw that in Kanye too. He just thinks differently. When everybody in rap was talking about drugs and guns,
mm,
he came was talking about pink polos and
yeah,
so when he came out with the MAGA hat, I wasn't surprised at all. I thought it was hilarious, and the way people
you
it
really
kind of
did.
exposed that people are not tolerant of other views.
Despite what they say.
Yeah, just by how they reacted towards it.
Yeah,
Um, and then also how monolithic and controlled people are. People think monolithically, and they're controlled. Their thinking's controlled as well. So yeah, I think those are the two things that were exposed with his actions, which I
yeah,
thought was really dope.
yeah, man. No, I'm with you on that. I thought it was dope. Like I've received criticism for thinking it's dope too, which is also funny because every time someone levies that criticism, it's kind of proves my point.
Yeah, exactly.
It literally proves my point because I'm like, the way I read the message was like, look, black people in America are not a monolith. We don't all need to think the same. We don't all need to vote the same. We should all get on with each other. We should all love each other. We should all embrace each other. That was literally what I got from the message. right? I
Yeah.
think that was like the overall, and I don't think that's a particularly controversial, I don't think that's a
Hmm.
particularly controversial method. Sorry,
Hmm.
message. And if you think of Kanye's past and the message he's always pushed, which has really been like unity, love, and being yourself, to put it simply, especially compared to lots of other rappers that people praise.
Hmm.
I thought it was hilarious that this is what gets you cast out of the, I don't even like to use the term black community because I think that's a little bit of a misnomer.
Hmm.
um I don't think there's such a thing as the black community because it's just, that's too wide. Like there's millions and millions and if not billions of black people, so to say like everyone's just a community, it doesn't really make sense. But
Yeah.
I thought that it was just funny how people were like, oh, Kanye's canceled, he's lost his black card, he's no longer, he's this, he's that, and like so much of
Hmm.
it racially based. Let's be frank, I mean, in the world of hip hop, you have so much negativity, you have so many messages which are directly violent, misogynistic, whatever, often aimed from black people to other black people. And nobody says a peep about that, right? Like
Right.
people love it, people support it, people push it. And then he's like, and then he did that, which in the grand scheme of things is in my personal opinion is far less harmful than all of that. The attempted digital lynching of him,
Yeah.
I was just like, it kind of blew my mind. I was just like, wow, so I can come on, I can come out, I can say this, I can say this, I can say that, I can talk about, I can talk about selling crack in my community, I can talk
Yeah.
about shooting, I can talk about shooting people, not even people, like I can talk specifically about shooting like other black people, I can promote this gang stuff, I can do this, I can do that, and even commit some of
Yeah.
these acts in real life and nobody seems to have a problem. But then, dude wears a red hat and actually meets with the president, like the actual president who people voted for, and suddenly he's public enemy number one. I just found that whole thing extremely fascinating and eye opening.
Yeah. I mean, look at Lupe Fiasco. Lupe Fiasco had a dispute with Atlantic Records some time ago,
Mm-hmm.
and do you remember that?
Yeah, when he was gonna, before he dropped lasers.
Yeah, and they were arguing over the content.
Mm-hmm.
There was some of the content on there the record label didn't agree with and said they didn't want him to say certain things on the record. So they're trying to control the content. But Lupe doesn't do like,
No,
shoot 'em up, bang bang drug.
no, no.
He's definitely more socially aware. So they're kind of trying to control the message. They're trying to control everybody's thoughts. So they don't want certain thoughts to be out there, but they'll allow all the destructive ones to be out there.
Yeah, that's something I find so fascinating, especially being an artist myself. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I mean, it's not really a joke when I say it, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? I bet if I just like made some mad ignorant, just got some trap beat and just
What it is you have to find a blend between the two. Kendrick Lamar is really good at that.
yeah.
So when you look at his single "Swimming Pools and Drink,"
Mm.
so everybody, when they listen to the record, they party to it. They're like, pull up, drink. But if you listen to the record, he's talking about his uncle dealing with alcoholism. Like
Yeah.
it's not the message is in the record. So that's kind of like where you kind of got to be with music. You got to sneak it in
Yeah, yeah.
there.
Yeah. Hide the medicine in the candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is fascinating to me. It is fascinating to me because I find it interesting over the years just to see what gets promoted and what doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think, you've got some more positive artists who are more self-aware and have what I consider certainly a better message for people who, break
Hmm.
out of the mold and become popular and whatever. But
Right.
it always seems for every one of those you're going to get like 5 to 10 5 to 10 of the polar opposite, and that's going to get more radio play and club play and all that.
Yeah, they control that shit from the radio, man.
Yeah.
Even the radio has to appease the advertisers. And the thing is, with the radio, they only play happy songs or party songs that keep you in a good mood because they say people buy more when they're in a good mood.
Mm.
So, they want to keep, people buying and keep the advertisers buying. So there's only a certain type of record to be allowed on the radio, and then they just mess with the playlist from there and only give you a certain style of record.
We will survive, I guess. At the end of the day, like we said at the beginning, you can only control what you can control. So
Right.
awesome, bro. Before we wrap up the podcast, did you have anything else you wanted to drop or mention?
Just want people to go to my website, bryansharpe.co, BRYANSHARPE. Go to my website and sign up for my email list. Basically, what I'm trying to do is cultivate minds that are going to create things and create ideas and businesses and startups
Mhm.
so we can start leveraging our economic power. Basically, I want to work with people that want to launch things that are change the world, things that are more ethical. Sometimes people have startups. It's like, oh, you have a new soda coming out. Great. Like, who cares? What things can we launch that actually change the world? Like with the CoinBits app, like that is something that can change things for people. It's a good positive change, and getting into decentralization, allow people to do transactions without the big banks involved.
Mm.
You come to Hotep Jesus, and make sure you don't have to deal with the big banks. That's it's kind of like, a great service to provide people. That's what I do with my email list. I help people build ideas like that.
Awesome, man. For
Yeah.
anyone who's on Twitter, how do they find you on there?
Vibha, Vibehi, Vibha.
Awesome. So that is Bryan Sharpe, aka Hotep Jesus. Thank you for coming on the show, bro. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me, man.
That's all good, man. Bye-bye.
I am the man, sick with the slang, sick and I'm destined for fame.